Hello and welcome to From the Be-All End, and this is the episode where we're going to be looking forward to Saturday's game at Manchester United and also going through some of the topics that have emerged at Turf Moor through this week. My name's Simon Evans and with me is Chris Bowden, Paul Woodhouse and Justin Connolly. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Very good, thank you. You?
Okay.
Yeah. Not bad at all. Right, let's start off with a topic that came up this week. Friend of the pod, Sasha Tavolieri, who was on our podcast last summer, talking about the transfer window and a number of those deals that he predicted would happen. Not all of them, but most of them he got pretty right. Sasha caused a bit of a stir earlier this week by tweeting, I'll not read it all out, but in summary, that if Brighton and Hove Albion decide to move on from Roberto De Zerbi, or more accurately, if the coach himself decides to leave Brighton, they are looking at potential replacements, and they've had conversations with the entourage of Vincent Kompany about whether or not he would be interested in taking on that role. Now, he didn't say it's happening. He didn't say this is definitely something that's going on. He didn't say there's been talks with the club. So the club's denials of saying this isn't true seem a little bit strange, really, because they wouldn't have been involved in any of those conversations, you presume. But it caused a stir. People got upset about it. And Kompany was asked about it during his press conference, I believe. Justin, what do you make of all this?
Well, the first thing to say is there's quite a lot of ifs in there, isn't there? If Brighton are looking for a manager and if they turn to Kompany, would Kompany be interested? I imagine behind the scenes conversations like this happen all the time between all the interested parties. I don't think it's anything particularly for us to worry about. Kompany's response in his press conference ahead of the United game was a bit strange. He was asked, to comment on the rumours, and he just sort of said, I don't discuss my future. I never have and I never will. And I made that decision on day one of my career, which I thought was a bit odd. And then the follow-up question was something along the lines of, paraphrasing, it must be nice, given the statement that the club came out with to have, support from your chairman. And he just sort of said again, I don't discuss my future. And then sort of said, move on. So that there was a bit of an odd cadence to all that. It was all a bit weird. But I mean, Kompany's right, isn't he, when he says, I'm just focusing on, we've got 4 games to play, let's just get on with that. And then, that's what everyone else should be focusing on there. What happens in the closed season, what happens in the summer, and what happens next season is a long way away because there are so many variables, aren't there? There are so many things still to be decided between now and the end of the season that I don't know that anybody can be planning for what comes next for us, for Vincent Kompany or any of the other teams in that bottom 5, really.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, in your previous life, this is the kind of thing that you had to deal with, when rumours appeared in maybe the national press or somewhere, and you've got to go to the club and talk to it about them. And, what did you make of the story? Or the tweet, rather than the story?
Yeah, like I say, as Justin says, sort of a lot of variables involved, isn't it? But you sort of think back in sort of my time covering Burnley. I remember Steve Cottrell being linked with, I think it might have been Leicester and West Brom, and that was sort of, Steve was great. Steve had sort of tip you the wink. He'd tell you what was going on, and sort of, you were in the picture. Obviously couldn't quote him, etc. But at least you'd sort of, be aware of what was going on. And Steve stayed loyal to the club, which I think a lot of fans appreciated at the time. I know the sort of, fans didn't necessarily enjoy the football at times during Steve's reign, but, to be blatantly obvious, and it didn't end wonderfully well. But I think they always appreciated he sort of steadied the ship, and he had opportunities to go and he didn't. And actually, you've got to ask these questions. We asked the question of Owen Coyle. Owen Coyle still had a job to do at Burnley, and then within about 10 days, he was on his bike, or on the train, shall we say. Similarly, Eddie Howe, the sort of noises that, he's going back to Bournemouth. No, he's not going back to Bournemouth. And so your gut sensed he would return, and so was the case. And say Sean was, he's brilliantly, always handled those with, it works out one of two ways, doesn't it? You do well and clubs are interested in you, or you don't and club turfs you out.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's in Vincent's case, you can sort of see. I mean, Brighton have, not to say that Burnley are yet in the Championship, but could be in the Championship. He's obviously won the Championship, and they've shopped there before for their manager in Graham Potter. De Zerbi's come in and done well, albeit they've somewhat tailed off. I mean, they're getting hammered as we speak by Manchester City. But you can see why they'd be interested. Sort of looking at the way he has developed young talent from abroad. Bought in some aspects relatively cheaply and done well with those players. But it's. It would be attractive to Vincent, of course, but there's too many question marks in that respect, and I think we'll just sort of not lose too much sleep over that in the meantime.
Woody, what did you make of it?
I thought it was quite interesting how Alan stuck his head out from the trenches just to say, "Get off my girlfriend," and stick his head back down again, and. If Al's saying no, then they can't.
Took a little pop at Sasha, didn't he? Actually,
he did. What his exact words were: "This is what happens when you let children play on X." Because he's trying to be obviously up with the youth with regards to that. And maybe he has a point, maybe he doesn't, but he hasn't really commented on much this season, so it must have struck a little bit of a nerve. And whatever that nerve may be, you journalist guys obviously know better than us mere fans.
Yeah, the thing about the club and Pace in it is that he'll have a release clause. So I completely agree. There's all these variables and lots of ifs, and it's not something that's on the immediate agenda. But if it did come down to it, he'll have a release clause in his contract, almost certainly. And there'll be an amount of money that a suitor would have to pay to get Vincent Kompany. And in that release clause, there will not be, if Alan Pace is happy with this, because it's not a release clause if it says that. So in many ways, what Alan Pace thinks about whether Vincent Kompany can leave or not, if there is a release clause, and I can't believe that Kompany would have signed a new contract as an ambitious young manager without having one, it doesn't really matter what Alan Pace thinks about it. If Brighton want him and they can pay the release clause, they can get him if he wants to go. So that's one side of it. But the other thing I would say about these things, and I'm sure Chris would agree with me on this one, is that you just have to remember as well, and bearing in mind, what people say in press conferences and what they say in statements and so on. People lie about this stuff all the time in football. I mean, it's just one of the parts of my job that I've always found difficult to deal with sometimes is you just have to presume quite often that people aren't telling you the truth. And, I could think of several, relatively high-profile incidents that I had as a reporter working in Europe where I spoke to someone and they absolutely gave me their word that a newspaper report was total fantasy and made up. And then within hours, that story turned out to be a true, and the person who was talking to me had completely barefaced lied about it for whatever reasons, and on one occasion they actually even apologized for it and just said that's the way the business is, which happened very early on in my career, and I was quite grateful for in a way. But so it doesn't. We don't really know what's going to happen, but it's interesting, I think, in the sense that Kompany still obviously has some sort of reputation there, hasn't he? After a disappointing season like this, that a club like Brighton, we had Kieran Maguire on here talking about, how they've evolved over the years and what they want to do and so on. It's interesting that Kompany is still seen as an attractive option, despite the evidence of this season. Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think also there's a bit of putting two and two together in terms of like the Brighton model and what managers sort of fit the profile to carry that sort of mission on. And your other two is Vincent Kompany, because that's sort of the Burnley's aspiration, and then you come up with five. Oh well, they must be coming together. So yeah, I don't know. I just take all that with a pinch of salt. The other thing to remember as well, I think, is that one of the reasons that Kompany came to Burnley in the first place, I thought, was to be closer to where his wife came from. She's from Manchester, isn't she? So, I mean, Brighton's not as far away as Brussels, but it's not an easy commute, is it? At the end of the day, his career will come first, won't it? But that's a factor to bear in mind as well. But it's true. The last thing that Vincent Kompany is going to say when asked about that in a press conference with 4 games to go in a relegation scrap is, "Yeah, it's all true. I'm off to Brighton at the end of the season." That's like, the chances of that happening are zero. And like you say, Alan Pace might not have even be aware of these conversations happening in the background, because if they have happened, they won't have happened directly between Kompany and anybody from Brighton, will they? There will be intermediaries involved. What did Sasha say? It was his entourage, or
entourage.
Yeah, so
good word, entourage, to be fair.
It's the same. It's like when Chris Wood, it's like when Chris Wood went to Newcastle. And I'd put a call into the club, as you do, and I was told, no, you won't be going to Newcastle. But if people aren't aware of certain clauses, etc., and as it turned out, there was a very specific clause that a certain agency who had a certain Kieran Trippier on their books, who they knew about that, and off he popped. But it can be a murky old business at times. But it's like, De Zerbi come out of thin air at Brighton, didn't you? But then I see Andy Naylor, who's covered Brighton this is before I started covering Burnley, 30 odd years. He posted a picture on social media last couple of days that had a meeting of minds in Manchester at a restaurant. The Guardiola, Enzo Maresca, who's obviously looks like he's taking Leicester back to the Premier League, and De Zerbi in Manchester a couple of weeks before De Zerbi was appointed. So you wonder how far down the line that was. Potter was obviously been he was bought out by Chelsea for, I believe, to be £20 million, wasn't it, at the time? So
money well spent. That.
Yeah. Oh. The entire staff that they've taken from Brighton, and the playing staff as well, it's not happened at all, has it? But
that's where Brighton's profits come from, I think, that one move.
An incredible transfer value going in that direction, aren't there? Yeah, well, we'll move on from that one, because it's probably a little bit soon to start talking about who we'd replace Kompany with, isn't it? But
oh God.
Or even if we'd be, but this is one. Would we be sad if he left? If we go down, would we be sad if Kompany left, or would it be seen by some people and maybe even the club as an opportunity to bring some money in and start afresh with another direction? Would he?
I mean,
troubled by that.
Yes. It's one of those. I think we're kind of used to it by now, because we're obviously old, cynical bastards. And if he goes, he goes. If he stays, he stays. You'd rather let him, finish his project off. But I think he'd probably go with our blessing, and then we can see what kind of rebuilding project we can do in the next 12 months. So it's one of those. I'm a bit like that. I'm a bit on the fence about it. I'd probably rather he stayed for continuity's sake. But
I think Burnley fans would be quite upset about it, despite everything that happened this year, and despite sections of the support saying it's time for him to go at various times in this season. you not think, Chris, that Burnley fans would be a bit upset if he left?
Yeah, I think I said a few weeks ago. I said I was quite ambivalent, really, about whether he stayed or whether he went. A lot of it's down to obviously who would be lined up as his replacements. If again, you go back to the Coyle one, and it was difficult to replace Coyle at the time, but everyone was downbeat about the appointment of Brian Laws before he'd even taken the team. It was just he had a job on his hands.
Yeah, I was a big defender of Brian Laws. Yeah,
but he had a job on his hands. Yeah.
Thank God we didn't have that podcast this podcast in those days. Oh my goodness.
Good. Can you imagine? But, yeah, it's one of those. I think he's. I said, the recent run sways things back in his favour, doesn't he? One defeat in 7, and all of a sudden, potentially on the cusp of what would be a remarkable escape. Probably the lowest points tally that's ever retained Premier League safety. But there'll be a section who think, despite Brighton having top 10 finishes last couple of years, European football, and regularly getting 30,000 through the door, that it would be a downward step because they're so proud of their town and their club, and Brighton aren't bigger than us, sort of thing. And there would be an element to that. Probably
10 years ahead of us, I'd say. Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. But it's. And I think anyone in the cold light today would look at it and say, yeah, it would be a good move for an ambitious young manager. But you know what it's like. It's probably the same could have been. Well, Bolton was supposedly 10 years ahead of Burnley at the time, weren't they?
Yeah, that was my little joke, actually. Yeah. Yeah, one move at Turf Moor that has been confirmed, we'll just quickly go over because it's generated a little bit of discussion, is the club have appointed a new chief of staff. This is a Singaporean gentleman, a former diplomat called Sean Bai, and grew up as a Manchester United fan, he tells the Straits Times, and worked at Valencia under another Singaporean, Peter Lim, who was the owner there, not a very popular owner, I have to say, of Valencia. He's coming as chief of staff, replacing Mark Boyxa, who was not really particularly well known as a chief of staff. So is this going to make any difference? We don't know. But reaction to this one, Justin, a new chief of staff.
I've never heard of either of those two people you've just mentioned. I'm not surprised that we're finding out about it from, what did you say, the Straits Times?
Fine newspaper, actually, in Singapore.
Yeah, but it's not come from the club, has it? Has the club said anything about this at all? I don't.
They confirmed it to the Straits Times after this Singaporean obviously went to write an article about me.
Yeah. So and I've absolutely no idea what a chief of staff might do. I suspect, it's not going to have a massive impact on what goes on the field. So my interest in it, I have to say, is fairly limited. It's just another one of those names that seems to be coming through this revolving door. There seems to be a lot of people come in, and I expect this fellow will be on his way out again, like a lot of the others in a less than a year. There seems to be a lot of turnover of these kind of sort of positions that. We find out we only really find out that somebody's in a job when they take it, and then are reminded of it when they leave about 10 or 11 months later to be replaced by somebody else who we've not even heard of. So I'm just going to forget about it and try and pretend this sort of stuff's not happening.
I mean, no one knows really what this chief of staff job title is, because it's not a traditional football job title, is it? But it according to the way he describes it, Woody, he's talking about being the sort of link man between the administration and the football side, and also having a role in recruitment. It seems everybody who's in some job has got a role in recruitment at times, but a link man, I mean, it's veering into, like, I don't know what the difference is between a chief of staff and a director of football operations or football director or technical director. There's a lot of job titles now, but if he's saying he's a link man, then it's actually quite an important job, isn't it?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? I mean, I'm still in a state of shock that we had a chief of staff before him. You know, that's the first time I've heard of his name. What was his name? Mark Boyka.
It's a tricky one to pronounce, but he's
All
gone.
right, it's all right.
He's gone to the Saudi league for some unbeknown reason.
You can't blame him. I mean, it sounds like a chief of staff to me, like a director of football. Feels like it's a little bit more football oriented in terms of, you know, player recruitment, etc. That's what it always seemed like from that perspective, and more continental. And they've got a good sense as to, you know, they've got a good footballing DNA. Now, being a United fan and having a business degree would kind of lend itself to, is a little bit more involved with the money aspect. You know, whatever that may mean. I'm sure we'll find out after somebody does a little bit of digging as to, you know, exactly what that means. But as Justin says, we haven't a fucking clue.
Justin doesn't swear on this program. He didn't say that at all.
I swear on his behalf.
Thank you, Paul. That's very kind of you.
Chris,
I'm looking here at the youth players that the article credits with him progressing to the senior team in recent years, and between the five of them, they've got as many appearances as Gary Neville had games in charge of Valencia, I think. Not a clue. It could be the new Chevy Singh for all we know. Honestly, not a clue. It's nothing Matt Williams couldn't do with his eyes shut, to be brutally honest. They've already got one of the top operators about, you know, highly thought of up and down the country, and you know, as you say, you see how he came across on the documentary. He's, you know, very, very good at what he does.
Yeah, maybe this is somebody brought in above him, over his head. I don't know. It's a weird one, or they work in conjunction or whatever. You know, when you start getting a lot of cooks, you know, you can start getting a bit of a problem, can't you? But we don't know. We don't know what the structure is anymore. We don't know who most of these people are who are coming in and coming out. I mean, it does raise another question as well, which is like, you know, if the club is building itself to be a sustainable long-term Premier League club, what on earth is a chief of staff in that? You know, because that's a phrase that I've only really heard in like American politics. Really, it's not presidents who are chiefs of staff, isn't that? Or is it a military phrase? Go on, Woody.
No, it's the president has a chief of staff, and he tends to be the enforcer. He tends to do the dirty stuff that the president can't. So when you're trotting around trying to get a bill over the line, he'll run around the halls of Congress, etc., bashing it, almost like a chief whip when they're trying to get a vote. But when it comes down to bills, etc., and pushing things through, and they tend to be nasty bastards. You know, they tend to be quite unpleasant. I've never heard of it necessarily within a corporate setting, but I'm not necessarily an expert on all things corporate with regards to the US. But I've never heard of anybody called a chief of staff, so I don't know what that role is.
I've come across a few, but yeah, so it could be.
It's Mike in 24, isn't it? Can you remember? He was a nasty bastard. Oof, don't mess with him.
Maybe he's a Singaporean Malcolm Tucker then.
Yes, exactly.
There's the phone. We had Alistair Campbell hanging around. We could have brought Campbell in and gone for the real thing.
Phone would have been off the charts.
Oh dear! Right. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about this in the future.
I'm sure we won't. Until he leaves.
Yeah.
Right, Manchester United. Chris, you were saying we had a good record at United and feeling like reasonably upbeat about it last weekend. Has that survived until Friday morning?
Well, any sort of optimism could only have grown over the week from what we've seen. They're bloody rubbish. If you watched them on Sunday, honestly, you're watching extra time. There was only one team going to score in extra time, and they did. And I've still to be convinced it's offside. And again, like I've not seen the highlights from last night, but to trail twice at home to Sheffield United is a feat in itself. It just seems to me, he's had 2 years there, Ten Hag. There's no sort of, nobody has a clue what his ideas are, what his system is, what his philosophy. And everyone hates that word, but all this talk about the clubs have had a lot of money, and he's spent thick end of £100 million on a dancer who can the Brazilian dancer who spins around with ball at his feet every now and again and doesn't contribute much else. You look at Højlund, who's at least had a better second half of the season, and he looks like a prospect, but they're just. But you know full well, but Burnley can go there, play him off the park, and Fernandes, as he did at the Turf, will produce a moment of magic, and that decides things. But you could go all the way through. Rashford's been. I love Marcus Rashford. I think he's a fabulous example for young lads. Watching football. The way he's handled himself. Over the years, he's been in the first team picture, etc. But he's had a rotten season again. You look at the way Sancho was sort of ostracised and just hasn't. It just seems it doesn't matter who they bring into the club on the playing side of things. It's just not going to click. There's something not right there, and it looks like Jim Ratcliffe's in the process of weeding it all out. And Mourinho's chipped in this week, hasn't he? Saying he wanted to get rid of half of the players a few years ago, etc. And no, it's a madhouse. But
so it's a madhouse, a basket case, but they'll probably beat it. Is that
probably will, won't they?
Right, Justin.
I think it's probably the most unpredictable game of the season, isn't it? Ten Hag himself has said that we're capable of playing at a very high level and playing at a very low level, and everything in between. And if your manager's saying that, you kind of, you have got problems. But it's like Chris says, they've got that. They've got some world class talent there that can unlock any defence and could produce moments of brilliance that just undo you, especially when, as we are, a team is prone to making mistakes here and there. But on the plus side, they've got a lot of injuries, haven't they? They're having to play Casemiro in the centre of defence. We've got a little bit of pace up there, which might give them a little bit of trouble. I think one thing they will do is give us opportunities, won't they? As we've seen over the last two games that we've all watched them. And if we can be as positive in and around their box as we were against Sheffield United last weekend, we can exploit some of the chances that we get coming our way. What the outcome will be is anybody's guess. I mean, it could be anything at either end of the scale, if you ask me. Very, very important game for us because I think if we win this, then given who some of the other teams around us are playing, I think it really will be on. Then it really will be on, and so I think we're well placed now, given the form, to give them a bit of a scare. Whether they can, they showed a bit of resilience, didn't they, against Sheffield United? So I don't think they're ever beaten until the whistle blows. So we need to be careful. But I think if we're aggressive, get on the front foot, we're well capable of giving them a bit of something to think about. And that is about as far as I'm prepared to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of never being beaten, I mean, we've seen that over the years at Old Trafford, haven't we? I mean, Victor Lindelof, wasn't it, in the 90th minute in a 2-2 draw after we've been 2-0 up? We had another one like that as well with a late goal. I'm trying to remember what it was. But we've had some decent results there as well. Woody, what are your thoughts going into this big one?
United have had a weird season, like everybody said, haven't they? And they seem like a side that feel almost offended about having to play for 90 minutes. They think they should be able to kind of turn it on in certain spots and, should just be able to kind of run away with it. And I don't think this will be the third game in less than a week as well, won't it? After one extra time. I'm sure they didn't want to have to come from behind twice against Sheffield United. That was far more difficult than they wanted it to be. So I can imagine they might be a little bit on the leggy side. And like Justin said, if there's one thing we're blessed with, we've got a little bit of pace through the side. Like Casemiro and Maguire, honking it around, not necessarily instill too much confidence in the Old Trafford faithful, will it? But there's a few curious little Google stats, which I'm sure AI has written, but United apparently have never lost a Premier League home game against the previous season's second-tier champions, winning 24 and drawing 7 of their 31 such games.
Ooh.
Exactly.
Good start.
I know. And Burnley had won just one of their last 32 Premier League games against sides to finish in the top 4 the previous season. Drawn 4, lost 27, beating Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield in 2021. So essentially, we're screwed.
I love those kind of stats. Some of the ones
mental.
Some of the ones we get over here are unbelievable. But yeah, no, it's Jesse Lingard, 90th minute was the other one. He scored twice, didn't he? When we were in the game when Defoe scored that wonder free kick, the free kick to die for, as Gilbert called it.
Some great goals at Old Trafford there, aren't there? Like that Gerrard goal was a smasher, wasn't it, as well?
Oh, it was.
Ings's header from Tripps's cross.
Yeah. If we're going to score, it's going to be spectacular.
Brilliant. They were better side that night. And then I think Van Persie popped up and just another really frustrating night. There was a couple where I think Smalling headed one in from a corner and they got a couple of penalties and Falcao stumped the place out and you just don't know. They're absolute just a mishmash at the minute. You have not a clue.
But it is a place where, when you think about going to Old Trafford these days, and Burnley's recent history as well, that quite a few times you've left there, even those games where they've had to score in the 90th minute to stop us beating them, as opposed to going to City or going to Liverpool. You've got positive memories about. I mean, this team won't have because not many of them will remember it. J-Rod will and Jack Cork and a few others, but not many of the starting lineup will have a collective memory of that. For them, it's probably one of their biggest games of the season, isn't it? For these young lads who've come in from Europe, going to play at Old Trafford, it's somewhere you've heard of. So big game for them. But do have positive memories of playing well there. And I can't remember which one of those games was the one where Tom Heaton made 525 absolutely brilliant saves.
That was a nil apiece, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. The 30 odd shots at goal, and he was absolutely sensational. Best goalkeeping performance I ever saw.
Yeah. I just think it's one of them where, it's easy to say after Sheffield United have scored there and twice, but you're right, we will get opportunities there. And the momentum we could get, if we just could get a win there, would be, as Justin was suggesting, I think really, even a point, to be honest, because points aren't bad for us in these situations, are they? But what about the rest of what's happened? I mean, Everton beating Liverpool, that's them safe now, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was a performance as well, wasn't it? Fantastic stuff. I think they're out of it now. I mean, it's we've got 2 teams above us. I think my instinct tells me we are going to finish above Luton. I think we will catch them. It's whether if we can get within 2 points of Forest before the end of the season, before that last game of the season. I think, I really do fancy us to turn them over at home. But it's getting there, isn't it? It's getting there and getting a point or or better still 3 on Saturday will go a long way to that. But I do think that, despite the fact that how many points have Everton been docked now? I'm losing count because they keep taking them and then giving them back.
Eight in total now.
So despite the fact they've been docked 8 points, they look pretty safe now, don't they? Which is, Sean Dyche again doing a fantastic job. Keeping an underachieving team punching above its weight and finding a way to get those points. To beat Liverpool 2-0 at this stage in the game is extraordinary, really, isn't it? And that was a fantastic performance, but I think it really does put them out of our reach now.
Would be a pity if Klopp sort of ended his time at Liverpool with like a series of disappointing results and a lack of trophies, wouldn't it?
I would weep.
He's an interesting character, isn't it? You can listen to him sometimes and quite warm to him, and at others, you just rubs you up completely the wrong way. But that was a masterclass last night, absolute masterclass. The set pieces, the work rate, the way they take Van Dijk out at every corner. Just bully them, and they don't like it. I was saying before the game, I was saying to someone, I said, Tarky will have Núñez in his pocket, and I know Núñez had a couple of chances, but he just old school. I'm gonna physically, I'm gonna ruin you, and I'm gonna give you nothing. I'm gonna test you mentally. You won't stand up to that either, and they're still a side in transition, Liverpool, aren't they? Really, but. They're going to fall. They're going to finish with just the one little trinket, aren't they? The League Cup. Also, I actually messaged Sean today just to say what the many conversations I used to have to him about music, but he's had a great few days because he actually features in the NME today, Sean.
Does he?
He's because he did an interview with Jeff Shreves for the Overlap, and he's talking about you have to go and see Green Day. And this apparently merits an article in the NME these days. So he's had a message from the lead singer of Green Day and etc. But he just messaged me back. He said, "In the NME, my work is done."
Hold on, Sean Dyche is a Green Day fan.
I thought.
Well, it's Stuart Pearce. Stuart Pearce dragged him to see him apparently, and he quite enjoyed it. But. He does. He likes all sorts, but
he's changing. He's changing. I noticed he had a tracksuit on last night during the game.
They had it the weekend against Forest, didn't he? He sort of broke with tradition and
I'm not sure I can cope with that.
There.
It looks wrong.
Yeah.
He'll be wearing a cardigan walking on a snowy pitch next, won't he? What's going on?
Still can't stop touching his face, though, can he? Is that a nervous thing, or what? What's that all about?
No.
Did you ever ask him about that, Chris? Why do you keep touching your face?
No. We always did. If you notice when he did interviews after the game, he'd always stand with his arms poker straight by his side. And it's like, you never fold your arms or whatever. I don't know. He's absolutely great character. He's still there's still a few Evertonians not convinced, but they were moaning about their. They've created a new record for Premier League games without a win this year, and I said to one Evertonian, well, they went 11 without a win when Burnley finished 7th. They come out the other side, won 5 on the spin, and since that moment they've won 3 out of 4. It's just it's what he does, isn't it? The end result that Everton have stayed up again. What does it matter along the way if you?
He does seem to have that, and all through those seasons, whenever there was a big bad patch, he never seemed to get to it, did it? He was always like, we've been through this before, and we've come out of it before, and we'll do it again. And I think I saw something with him saying this morning in one of the papers. There's still a lot of work to be done to sort of sort Everton out, and it doesn't obviously help him that the club's financial situation is so rocky and shaky, but there's so many clubs like that now, aren't there? There's a lot of clubs where there's this uncertainty around them and ownership questions and so on. Right, we should get to some silly predictions now, I think, before we go to Old Trafford. I know we love doing these. And we got accused of being giddy giddy with success after that Sheffield United win. So now we've had 4 or 5 days just to calm ourselves down. Let's have our calm and considered predictions for what Manchester United versus Burnley is going to end up as. Let's start with the master of calm and collected, Paul Woodhouse.
It's going to be some form of draw.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But go on. I can tell by the way you're saying that. The deep inside,
it's not going to be 0-0, is it? Come on.
You've got some feeling about.
No,
you're saying
no,
3-3 there, really, aren't you?
I won't tempt it. Every time I come with a prediction, it's gone absolutely disastrously wrong, and I really don't want it to go disastrously wrong. I'm being a bit superstitious about it.
Fair enough. We accept that in football land.
Yeah.
Justin.
Oh, well, since I've just described this as the most unpredictable game of the season, I want you to take my prediction with that. Bear that in mind. I'm going that we're going to win 4-2. Lyle Foster, 3. He's going to run rings around Casemiro. Casemiro won't be able to cope with his pace.
He couldn't cope with your pace.
He managed to catch the Chilean imposter, though, didn't he? Did you see that? They had a foot race, and Casemiro was quicker than him. Lovely.
I think that says more about Mr. Diaz than anything else, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So Woody's gone score draw. Justin's gone 4-2 to Burnley. Chris Bowden.
Well, I was thinking score draw as well. I think we'll score first, and I think the crowd will get hold of United and shake them into some sort of shape, and they'll end up pegging us back. But it's been nice to get nice to round off a week of celebrations. It's been fantastic looking at all these pictures of a year ago today. Some fantastic memories, and even it's the same day we won the FA Cup, which I don't recall seeing 110 years ago. But, just taunting anyone of a blue and white persuasion, just taunting them all day.
So go on, what are you predicting?
Score draw.
Score draw as well. All right. Well, in that case, I think we sneak it, and I think it's J-Rod has an unbelievable record at Old Trafford, because I think as well as that goal for Burnley, he also, I think I saw him score for West Brom there.
He got a winner there, yeah.
To hand the title to Man City, it was. Last game, penultimate game of the season. I think J-Rod's going to just glance one in coming off the bench, and we win 2-1. 2-1 to Burnley. J. Rodriguez winner. But I'll take Justin's Lyle Foster hat-trick as well. Brilliant. Let's see what happens. It's going to be an interesting one. We'll be back to talk about it all on Monday. I can't wait to do that one. It's a big, big game, a proper one that matters. They all matter now. It's crunch time. Cup finals all the way to the end of the season. Have a great weekend, and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Upton. Go.